So, are we going to cheers to this thing or what?
I don't have any liquor, but I mean, I have some water.
You want some of mine? I'll sip mine.
That's kind of weird.
All right.
Sharing the same glass for, I mean, we can cheers with this.
Yeah, there you go. Cheers.
Yeah.
100 episodes, John. 100 episodes.
Shouldn't that mean we do like 100 bottles of beer on the wall? We start the episode, and by the time we get to one, I mean, that's the end of the episode?
I kind of thought about that. I thought we should do that. Or, and I had a lot of different ideas, like let's do 100 products that are, or 100 best upgrades for your 4x4. We'd have to like rapid fire them.
Yeah, and we'd have to dig deep. I mean, we could go in general.
No, I know. I could get into a lot of them. So, I mean,
we tossed around a few ideas.
There's a lot of different themes we could go. We could get somebody on. I thought about all of that. Of course, you could talk about 100 series Land Cruisers or Dodge D100s, or if you're going to play on your numbers. But I think maybe we can go a different direction here.
Let's check it out, see what happens.
It's time to hit the trail, lock in those hubs, and throw it into low range. Because you are listening to Wheelin' with Keith and Johnny Orange. They're here to talk about 4x4s, trucks, and everything to do with enjoying the great outdoors. Buckle up. Here's your hosts, Keith and Johnny Orange.
So do we want to start right into that, or should we start with our latest comment that we have here?
Oh, go ahead. What, you said we have a comment on there?
Yep. So I unfortunately only just noticed this last week or so, and I was looking at some of the specs for just some of the tracking info or demographics, where it's playing, what countries and all that. Actually, Australia is crazy high up the list right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we actually charted there for a while. I haven't looked in the last couple days, but
maybe we should talk about 100 series Land Cruisers.
Actually, big over there.
Actually, well, they are, but I was thinking about this earlier when I was in my office, sitting on my my porcelain chair there, and I was thinking
the big head honcho was
something that might be fun to do. And we have a couple episodes here where somebody can come up on 4x4 Talk and they can tell us if they'd like to hear. We haven't done a tech episode. Well, we did one a couple episodes ago. We did the CRV.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
I have an idea for, I think, maybe one of our next tech episodes. It might not be the very next, but episode 105, the 105 series Land Cruiser was a mostly Australian and African-only spec Land Cruiser. And it was like the 100 series we got here, which got really cushy. Here it had IFS and automatic only. But in Africa and Australia, you could still get it was essentially the rounded, updated, the first time you get a V8 in the Land Cruiser, the 100 series, but you could get it also with a manual and solid axle.
Nice.
And so it was the last luxurious model of the solid axle Land Cruisers.
Nice.
So I was thinking maybe, if our listeners are interested, in fact, probably, I think a lot of Land Cruiser people don't even know the 105 exists. They know the 100 series, quote unquote, but they don't know that the 105 is like this crazy beefy vehicle that we could never get in North America. So I think we could do a tech heavy episode on
that'd be cool.
The 105 Land Cruiser for episode 105.
Yeah.
So we're not talking about that right now, but if you guys want to hear about that, we'd like to hear your feedback now. So if you're like, hey man, yeah, I love 105s, or here's my 105. If we got somebody that listens that maybe is in Australia or Africa that's like a 105 expert and they want to talk to us, reach out and talk to us, or reach out to us, and we'd love to talk to you about the 105s.
I had a really cool interview lined up yesterday, my weekend job on the boat.
Yeah.
We had this couple that was up from Texas for the Woodward Dream Cruise, and they brought, I don't remember what the model was, because I've never heard of it. They had this car. It was like an undercover police car, all-wheel drive, like manual transmission, some crazy, rare, hard-to-get thing from Australia. They brought had shipped over here, and they go to Woodward Dream Cruise every year with this car.
Holden, maybe?
Maybe that sounds familiar.
Yeah, Holden is GM's division over in Australia.
Okay.
They actually Holden just folded, I think, last year or the year before.
Oh, bummer.
and now they just sell everything as Chevy and stuff like that. There was a separate division, kind of like Saturn and Pontiac and all that.
Huh. Well,
But the Holdens had some crazy.
They
stuff.
told me a little about it, and I don't remember a lot of the details. It was a pretty busy day, and they were offloading the boat, and I was waiting for them to come back, let me know they were ready, because I was going to do a Facebook Live for Wheelin and interview these folks on this thing. I didn't hear from them for a few minutes, and I went to find them, and they were gone.
Oh, geez.
I was bummed out. So, yeah. Anyways, so this is from T. Dixon 508. He read, great podcast. Highly recommend making this podcast part of your routine if you enjoy listening to great history of all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive. The hosts are fantastic. Well, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We do appreciate that.
We, of course, do recommend listening to it and adding it to your routine as well.
Of course. If you're already listening to this, or if you're not listening to this, just make sure you do listen to this.
Yes, exactly.
It doesn't work that way.
We thank you for listening if you're not a listener.
Well, something we could talk about here. Now, we did do kind of a reminiscing episode the other
a while back
where we were talking about all the different things that this podcast has brought to our life.
Yeah.
And we've talked about, all the different fun things that we did because of it. I think it might be interesting for a minute here, instead of like a reminiscing per se, but for those who maybe have picked up Wheelin from now or maybe 20 or 30 episodes ago and they didn't go all the way back to episode 1, to kind of explain to them where this came about and why and what we're doing now. I mean, I know we say it all the time that it was kind of a creation to get advertising for the Museum of Off-Road Adventure, but, I was thinking maybe we could quote unquote reminisce a little bit about that.
So I remember one of the early times you and I were talking about this. Was this 2 summers ago? You're driving all over the state, and I was just going with you for some of these trips. Was that 2 years ago?
I think it was a lot longer than that.
It might have been maybe 3 or 4 years ago. Whatever it was, you were driving around picking parts up, buying stuff, selling stuff, and just called me up every now and then to go with you. And we I know that's where the idea started originally for the podcast.
Okay, let's back the train up here. Excuse me. And let's talk about the Museum of Off-Road Adventure for a minute.
Okay.
And where that came from. Yes, it was my brainchild to a certain respect, but of course, I was the guy with the lighter, but all of you and all of our other friends and compatriots that are involved in the museum were the sparkler. Lit the sparkler and you guys, or the firework. You guys are the ones.
I want to be a mortar, not a sparkler.
A mortar.
Yeah. One that goes up really high in there. One of the illegal ones. I want to be a good one.
The idea for this, I would say, probably goes back to about 2014 or 2015. And maybe even a little bit before that, when I was in the old car world and things like that. But around 2014, 2015, I had noticed a number of different vehicles that were being, that were four-wheel drive historical vehicles that were either being scrapped, torn up for parts, crushed for steel, especially since when steel was way high.
Makes me sad.
Oh, I know. And I think the ones that really sparked, and I can tell you a couple of them right off hand here, and I was talking to somebody about this at the museum the other day. 4 or 5 years ago, I became aware of a Nash quad, which we've talked about the history of those way back number of episodes ago. I think when we were talking about some of the inline history of the Jeep Straight Six and how the family history went all the way back.
Sounds vaguely familiar, yeah.
Yeah. But there was a Nash quad, which was the first really true mass-produced four-wheel drive vehicle. And there was one in central Michigan that a number of people have spotted on this guy's farm or whatever it is. Maybe it's close to the road. I've never seen it in person. And they've taken pictures of it, and apparently a number of people have approached this guy. They only made about, I think off the top of my head, around 13,000 of the Nash quads. We can do an episode on those someday. But they had approached him, and the guy was always like, no, I'm going to restore it someday. I'm going to do this. And it's just literally been sitting in a field since the 1950s. I heard a rumor around that time that it had been hauled off for scrap.
Oh.
Now, since then, I have heard that it is actually still there, and that was just a rumor. But that really pained me that a Nash quad, which I was familiar with, being a 4x4 and vehicle historian, had been hauled off for scrap. Like, why would you take the world's first mass-produced four-wheel drive vehicle, of which there's maybe 200 or 300 in existence, if that, maybe not even that many. That might be conservative, or that might be pretty liberal on that. There may only be like 50 left or something.
Yeah.
And go and crush this thing for scrap. And so that started to bother me. And I also was familiar at the time with a Marvin Harrington conversion for Ford four-wheel drive that was sitting behind a. And this one I did see in person. I actually was out for my trucking business, and I saw it behind a funeral home. And I pulled in, checked it out, did a bunch of, it was a closed down funeral home, but did a bunch of reverse off of a cemetery, did a bunch of reverse image searches on Google, and eventually figured out who owned the property, contacted them. I was like, I'd like to buy this thing. And, the Marvin Harrington conversions for the Ford F-Series back in the 1940s and 50s were some of the first, like, modern four-wheel drives, I guess is what you call them, because you had the modern pickup truck, but it had a solid axle in the front and a transfer case. And they predate NAPCO by a couple of years.
Oh, wow. Cool.
We talked back and forth over about a year process, but the folks there were like, first they thought it was worth big money, and then they were like, "Oh well, it was promised to someone," and it was one of those deals where it never materialized.
Yeah, I've dealt with those.
But I started to realize that there was no one really preserving the. Well, I thought there was, so I started researching around. I started Googling and internet searching and going, okay, well, there's got to be an all-inclusive 4x4 museum somewhere in the world, right? And found out there wasn't. At the time, there was the Toyota Land Cruiser Heritage Museum in Salt Lake City, Utah, which is still there.
Yeah, we've talked about them a few times.
And I'd like to get somebody on from that someday. I think
that'd be awesome.
That'd be really cool. Actually, maybe the 105 episode, maybe we can get someone from there.
Yeah.
I'll reach out. I actually have a friend on Facebook that works there.
Nice. Very cool.
So, there was that place. There was the Rod Hall Motorsports Hall of Fame, which is a rotating collection of about a dozen race vehicles. They're only off-road racing out in Reno. There at I think it's at Terrible's I think it's Terrible's Casino out there in Reno, Nevada.
That does not sound like a place I'd want to go. It's in the title, Terrible's. Why would I want to go there?
I think it's there. I could be wrong on that. And then there was the FWD four-wheel drive museum in I think it's Wisconsin, might be Minnesota, but they are focusing on the FWD truck. So there was really no one that was focusing on everything.
Yeah.
And so I had started myself personally as a kind of a little bit of a campaign. I had some connections with some other car museum people I knew, and I started calling around and talking to these different car museums. And I was like, hey, if I could put together a rotating collection of maybe 10 or 12 vehicles, would you be interested in hosting it for a year at a time to teach about off-road and four-wheel drive history? And I got the same answer from everybody. There's some emails I sent. There was phone calls I made. Well, no, it's not really what we're into. We're into Corvettes. We're into brass era cars. We're into whatever. No one really wanted to talk about.
They wanted to branch out. They wanted their specific thing only.
They wanted cars,
Bummer.
Even the NATMUS Museum, the North American Truck Museum or whatever, truck and bus, I think it's something like that. They're more like the big trucks and
semis,
and things like that.
Bummer.
So that's when I started contacting all of the people I knew that were interested in this or possibly interested in museum stuff. And as you know, we ended up having a meal at Foxfire Fixins, and we sat down and we hammered out that first night over a couple hours, basically a
rough outline.
And, and that worked out really well. And then we didn't know what we were going to do or when we were going to do it or where it was going to be.
Yeah.
And then my dad had that building that he wasn't using, and he said, well, you guys clean it up and keep it maintained, and you guys can use the building.
Yeah.
And that's where the museum is today, in Clay Township, Michigan. So 11 months later, after our meeting at Foxfire, we were open to the public, and that's a couple of years ago. And I think that was pretty amazing because a lot of museums that do start from scratch, it takes them years and years and years.
Yeah, I didn't know a lot of this back history on your side of it. I was never aware of a lot of that.
Oh, you weren't?
No. Or if we talked about it, I forgot.
Yeah, okay. Well, so that's where a lot of that came from. And then, you came down and helped cleaning out the place and then building some of the early displays, our gas station, faux gas station wall there. Jason came
Reminds
down.
me, if we want another gas pump, I got one I can bring.
Please.
Yes.
That'd be great.
It's heavy. It's very heavy. But
And so we started to really make the space our own, and we're continuing to make the space our own. Dad's no longer with us, but my mom, who owns the building now, is like, hey, let's continue here. She likes what we're doing. And we're going to probably be there for many years until we outgrow the space. We're kind of doubling up right now on our available space in there, which is awesome.
So if you have something you'd like to display or loan to us for a while, please get a hold of us.
Yeah, sure. For sure. And then I think you and me, after we started the museum, and Andrew as well, because Andrew, the producer, was with us for 70 episodes or whatever it was.
Something like that. Almost 80, I think.
And
I think it was almost right up to episode 80. Let me
okay.
see what I took over.
Andrew's our president of the board, and he still is. And, we went through, when we created the museum, a lot of people think, oh, well, this is a fly-by-night thing. No, we sat down and we hammered out bylaws. We actually hired a lawyer, a nonprofit lawyer, to make sure that all these bylaws were ironclad. And he submitted them to the federal government for 501c3 status. And that whole process took about a year.
Yeah.
Before we were approved on that. But we are officially a 501c3 nonprofit organization now. Which, folks, if you're a listener of Wheelin and you haven't been to the museum, and maybe you can't get to the museum because you live in California or you live in, Mexico or you live in Australia or whatever, but you want to continue to see the efforts of the museum, and you're maybe following us on Facebook and Instagram, Museum of Off-Road Adventure, you can go right to our website, which is themora.org, MORA, and you can make a small donation through there. There's a donate now button on there, and that helps out a lot. We get all sorts of small donations coming in, and big donations are even better. But small donations, and there you go. So we're at Foxfire even when we did this, and you remember we didn't even know what to call this thing. We just knew we were going to open an off-road history museum.
I remember that part. Yeah.
And we sat down, and I don't even know who really came up with Museum of Off-Road Adventure. I know that I had a bunch of ideas on I think I had on one of my notes, I think I had Museum of Off-Road History or something like that.
Sounds vaguely familiar. I at one point had a tab in my notes program on my phone with a bunch of that stuff.
Oh, okay.
Pretty sure I got rid of it, though.
Well, I remember, Amber and, who's also on our board, and a few other people were down there. And somebody, and I want to say maybe it was Andrew, had said, if my memory serves me right, well, I want our museum to have an acronym, so we can call it the something.
I vividly remember that part of it. I think it was Andrew that suggested that.
And so somebody came up with how about adventure, because, off-road vehicles are for adventure, and it's outdoor lifestyle. And so it was Museum of Off-Road Adventure, the MORA. And we ended up rolling with that, and that's what it ended up being. So, this was really a group effort, everyone getting together, sitting down there. And we had 9 people sitting there that first meeting, something like that?
I think it was a few more than that.
Yeah, we had a lot of people. Yeah. Because we had some people that dropped out of it. We had some people that initially
were founding members and then just
said they wanted to be involved, but never ended up being involved.
Yeah.
And
said they weren't started, and then we're not.
We had a gentleman that wanted to be the archivist for all of our books and magazines and anything like that, and he even kind of had that title for about 6 months, and then he kind of faded into existence and passed away. And he really never came to any of our meetings or anything, but he was involved separately. And I don't want to say his name right now. I can tell you later, but yeah, it was that was something that was, he was a guy
I remember that.
I don't know if you ever met him.
Maybe that's okay. I don't know. We'll talk after.
But for a while he was putting down, on his social medias and stuff that he was the archivist for our museum and stuff. But, it took a while to figure out how to get it all together. And like I said, we hired the lawyers and we did it the right way. And so then, of course, we opened up eventually. It took us, after acquiring rights to use the building, it took us about, 4 months to open up, 5 months, something like that.
Thereabouts, yeah. We got some of the stuff moved in. Because then we started accumulating stuff for it pretty quick.
Yeah.
And then just slowly moving it in, kind of getting it cleaned up, set up, and ready to be displayed, of course.
And then Andrew and... well, that was something. Our first vehicle, if you remember.
Oh yeah. So
somebody had asked me, and I think it was Amber, when we were there. And I don't have my old notebook here. I'm kind of looking at the one I have in front of me, and I know it's not that, but I think it was Amber had said to me, "Well, what kind of vehicles do you want to have in?" When we were at the meeting, and I said, "It's funny you say that." And I pulled out this notebook, and I had a list of 15 or 20 historical off-road vehicles that were of great interest. And I said, these are the ones I'd really love to see in the museum. And I don't remember the particular order they were in, but I remember I had a Marmon Harrington conversion. I had a Napco conversion in there. It has number 2 or 3. It was right up there. I wanted World War II Willys, or at least a CJ2 Humvee. I wanted another one, an Eagle wagon, or not a wagon, but an AMC Eagle. And I had this, going down this list, and ironically, even though we only have at any given time, maybe a dozen vehicles rotating through the museum, we have had consistently an Eagle there from day one, and we had our first vehicle was the Napco. The very next day, I was sitting there playing on Facebook on my phone, drinking my coffee in the morning, and somebody posts on one of the off-road pages I'm on this cool old Napco fire truck, and next thing you know, we own that thing.
Yeah.
So that was just fate,
That was luck, too. I mean, the rarity of something like that is, wow.
Yeah, exactly. One-of-a-kind truck, so it was... but we got the museum open. We opened officially during the 2019, was it, or 18 Christmas
19.
Walk? 2019 Christmas Walk event. And we had people coming down and touring through there through the entire event.
Was it 19 or was it 18?
I think it was 18.
Yeah.
It was 18. Yeah, the 2018, because we did 2 years of the Christmas Walk down there. So it would have been 18.
And then last year was a little screwy.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So the 18 Christmas Walk. So we were open December 1st, 2018 officially for the first time.
Yeah, and I remember, I think it was that year I went down there one of the nights and just kind of, I think, it must have been 18.
So that whole first year, we didn't do a podcast or anything like that. But you and I got talking, and some of the other people got talking about advertising and how to get out there, information about the museum.
I think it was 18 then. It was when our, what do you want to call that? Parts running year?
Well, yeah, because if you think about it, 18 was the year...
Yeah, it would have been that year, because that's when we were formulating everything for the museum.
And I had more free time because it was between my diving career and being over in demolition. I was self-employed, thin line off-road.
Yeah.
So that
would have been 2018.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow, that was a big year for all of us.
And as you and I I was running around the state picking up stuff for the business and stuff all the time. You rode with me a lot, and I know we kept bouncing ideas off each other.
Oh, yeah.
I think the idea originally, the first complete, whatever you call it, crazy idea was a reality show of some type. And we're like, how cool would it be? And then, after that, we were like, well, okay, so that's, we'd have to try to get somebody to film all this, or to, you want to pause for a second?
No, I'm just checking something.
Oh, okay. Do you hear that?
The fan on my computer?
Oh, is that what that is?
Probably, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I have no way around that, unfortunately.
Sorry, folks. I thought I was listening to a vacuum cleaner. We're going to keep rolling here, but...
It's not that loud. Don't turn it a little more.
It's all right. So...
she gets hot when she works.
So anyway, so we're talking about, we're like, okay, a reality show. Okay, that won't work. Well, how about a YouTube web series? Okay. We started playing with some videos, and we started doing it with Andrew.
Yeah.
And...
Yeah. That's why we did the interview on Pegasus.
Yep, we did.
Yep.
We did the Pegasus interview. We did. Is that the only one, or did we do something else?
I think it was the only
I
one.
think we filmed something else, but we never actually did anything with it.
We may have, yeah.
And we found out that you're a terrible actor.
What?
What?
I play a bar bouncer perfectly fine, thank you.
I'm not that good on camera yet. I'm getting better, but I
half a bottle of moonshine, you're fine.
yeah, okay. So I was getting to the point where I was like, all right, this is not good. So then I think it was maybe Andrew, and I still hadn't thought podcast. Now, ironically, I was a listener of a couple of podcasts, one of them being a off-road podcast for Toyota trucks. And then another one that was more like a quasi-political podcast I would listen to. And I also used to listen. Yeah, and I used to listen to the Joe Rogan show, on and off here and there. But I really never put two and two together on there. And I think maybe it was Andrew who said, because I was like, well, maybe we could go to a radio station or something and do a late night radio show or something. And then I think it might have been Andrew who was like, well, you guys are decent on audio, but you suck on video. He's like, why don't we do a podcast or something, And I think it was him, actually. And
That could have been.
And then we said, okay. And so we started talking about the idea. And this was not an overnight thing.
No.
We kept bouncing this idea around.
I remember talking to you about it on one of our back road ventures.
It might have been your idea, too. Like,
wouldn't have been mine, because
Okay.
I'm not normally one for audio anything.
Oh, okay.
So it was, well, you brought the suggestion.
Yeah.
I think it was something you and Andrew had been talking. It's a long time ago.
I know,
It's a
but
fuzzy memory.
I mean, it's fun though to talk about it and reminisce about it. So that's where it came from. And the idea, and originally we said this was a production of the Museum of Off-Road Adventure, but then that very next meeting we had,
we ran the idea by the board, and it was determined better to just keep it separate.
they didn't hate the idea. They like they like the podcast, but they were like, legality wise, if John says something really bad, and if he ends up getting us sued, and
it's always me.
Yeah.
Whatever.
No, you're good, man. It's just, that's
where it was born.
That's where it was born, and that's where it came from. And so, here we are. Are we over 2 years?
Oh, yeah.
So we're over 2 years.
Yeah, we had our 2-year anniversary
That's
episode.
Right, 2-year anniversary.
Hey, what are you drinking in there? That looks like water. I thought it was ice water. Maybe not.
Is now. We did 2 years. We're 100 episodes in on this thing, and we're having a lot of fun with it. We're talking about these old 4x4s, and we still have so many things to talk about. And there's still
like the cologne that I just bought.
Oh, geez. All right, tell me about the cologne.
It's actually pretty sweet. I took pictures of it.
How am I supposed to smell a picture?
Well, it's not the picture. I bought it because of the bottle. You know how Avon did all those weird vintage shaped bottles? It's a stick shift.
Oh, I thought that was one of those toys that girls put on inside of a shower.
No.
With a suction cup on the bottom of it.
I'm going to say that talk for the after show.
What? I don't know what you're talking about. Like a dent puller for a car.
Oh, right.
Or a plunger. Right. Is it a plunger?
No, it's an actual stick shift pattern.
Oh, it's a Volkswagen stick shift.
I don't know what it is.
That's a Volkswagen pattern.
It was $2 I bought it.
I'm pretty sure it's a Volkswagen Beetle pattern, and it looks like a Volkswagen Beetle stick shift. That's pretty cool, though.
I took a sniff of the cologne inside, and good God, it reeks.
Does it smell like cat pee or something?
No, it smells terrible. However,
so you're not going to wear it?
Probably not, no. This, though, you might like. So I was going to post this picture, and I do have a video. 1985.
What's with the mismatched wheels?
The wheels? Oh, I didn't even notice that.
It's really weird. It's got skinnies in the back, and it's got meaty tires in the front.
Don't worry, guys. I will be posting these pictures on the 4x4 Talk page. I'll post the video too. It's not this one, the next one. So 1985, he did a lift. It's got the 14-bolt axles.
Square body, short bed, step side.
Beautiful, beautiful truck.
Yeah.
And he swapped, I think he said like a 6.2 or 6.4 diesel into it. Something
Very
like
nice.
That. Oh my God, it sounds good.
It'd be a 6.2 or 6.5 if it's GM diesel.
Yeah.
Back then.
Okay. The 6.2 then, I believe.
6.5 is turbo. 6.2 is the naturally aspirated, just a rattler.
6.2 then, turbo diesel.
No, 6.5 is the turbo. It's got turbo or no?
I thought he said it did, yes.
Oh, okay, yeah. 6.2 is naturally
I
aspirated.
said what
6.5.
he said it was in one of the videos. I have two. One was a
Thank
video.
God that our listeners actually are car people for the most part, because we go off on the tangents about stuff and we just start rattling out like specs about stuff. And I would say that like 99% of the general populace would be like, "What the hell are these two?" All of a sudden, these guys are talking about old trucks or whatever, but then they start talking about diesels and this and that.
Talking about millimeters and turbos and inches and exhaust. This makes no sense.
Exactly, like that's pretty crazy.
It's just funny how they do that.
Yeah, but
Someone's here.
oh, probably. Probably somebody here earlier.
It's a beautiful truck. The guy used it as a tow rig for his boat.
Yeah.
And my God, it sounded good, looked good. He did a really nice job on a custom front bumper for the thing. I mean, it looks factory. It's incredible what he did with that.
Nice.
I'd
like to see some more pictures later.
Oh, yeah. Like I said, I'll post the video up. I was just really bummed I couldn't get the interview on that Australian car, man.
Yeah.
That thing sounded cool.
That would be neat. That would be very neat. Did you go? You didn't go out to the Woodward Dream Cruise, or you did?
No. These guys, they were up. So as you know, I work on the scuba charter boat in Port Sanilac, and these guys were up. They came up from Florida for the car show. They're big into scuba diving. Wanted to do some diving up in Michigan, and the area they were staying, they contacted one of the dive shops, who just so happened to have a trip with us booked for this past weekend here. So they signed up, they came out, and they went out with us. It was their first cold water and Great Lakes dives. So it was really cool. They had a great time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they loved it. They complained about it being a little cold, which, I mean, all right.
Didn't you turn the heat on?
No.
Needed to.
We got to pay extra for that.
Oh, okay. All right.
You know how much electricity it takes to heat up the lake? Come on. No, we took them to a couple of the good wrecks, shallower one, get them started, and one of the most popular ones after that. They had a great time. It was overall a really good trip.
And they drove their fancy car there?
They drove that there, yes. Apparently they shipped that here, and then they flew up to wherever it was, and then they're going to have the car shipped back, and they're going to fly home.
Okay, so that's some big money type of operation there, yeah.
Yeah.
Are they from Australia, or?
No, they're from Texas.
But it's an Australian car.
Yes.
Probably a Holden.
That like I said, that sounds about right. Mm-hmm. If I remember, I'll see if I can't find their name, because he said he's done some interviews before that have been on TV and stuff.
But it's pretty
see
rare
if I can
car.
find them. Apparently, yeah.
You have pictures?
I didn't know. Like I said, I didn't see where they parked. They were supposed to come back, let me know they're ready, and they never did.
Gotcha.
So,
all right, man.
I know they were on a timetable though, so yeah. It is what it is. What can you do?
Well, I mean, I get it. You run into all those. I've seen all sorts of cool cars out there in pictures lately with the Woodward Dream Cruise going up and down.
Seen stuff on Snapchat like crazy this past.
From that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Apparently, people are mostly behaving this year. I've only seen a couple of wreck pictures and stuff. They've had some problems in the past with it getting a little too wild down there at Woodward, but. I used to go to the event regularly, and for folks who don't know what we're talking about, if you're not a Michigan person, you probably wouldn't know, or maybe surrounding states, but there's the Woodward Dream Cruise, which is Woodward Avenue, which is a street that runs essentially from downtown Detroit up through all the way up to Pontiac, Michigan. And I think it continues past Pontiac, Michigan, but along the stretch through mainly the Royal Oak area, just north of 696, the freeway, I-696, they do every year what's called the Woodward Dream Cruise, and they take cars, all sorts of antique cars and trucks, and they run up and down Woodward Avenue, and they just cruise, and that's all they're doing is they just do laps. And
some places will have like little parking lot displays set up and stuff.
There's vendors, there's all sorts of stuff. The idea is to actually use the cars.
Yeah,
and they do.
That's what I love about it. You're using them. You're not. I mean, don't get me wrong. I love display only vehicles and stuff like that, but they're meant to be driven, man. They're meant to be used.
They do have some burnout areas.
Yeah.
And then they split off. Now they also do drag nights on Woodward by Roadkill, the Roadkill people from Motor Trend. Some of the people I actually know.
Nice.
They do that, and they do the drag nights. So they do the drag racing on Woodward.
Nice.
So of course, all of you are probably thinking like, why this particular street in Michigan? Did his picket? Well, no. In the 1960s, late 1950s, early 1960s, Woodward, more towards Detroit, not up near Royal Oak as much, but more towards Detroit. Woodward was where a whole bunch of weekend drag racers, Friday, Saturday nights, would go out, and they would race between streetlights, illegal street racing. Back then, it was not as built up as it is today, so it was slightly less dangerous. They knew that they could pretty much run from light to light without people coming out of, your 7-Eleven or whatever.
Yeah.
And it was a very popular place. But what really, do you know the car that clinched the history of the Woodward?
I'll be honest, I didn't know anything about the history of it, so this is all news to me.
Well, okay, so Pontiac wanted to, some of the guys over at Pontiac who were in Pontiac Performance Development or whatever they're called, they wanted to start building like fast cars, like drag cars for the street and stuff. And the hires that be at Pontiac were like, no, we're basically an old man car company. We drive around, we build these big boats and stuff. So they took their lightweight Tempest body and took their engine out of their big Bonneville and souped it up, the 389, and put it in the Tempest and hooked it up to a 4-speed. Originally, the GM 4-speed wasn't strong enough, so they actually used Ford top-loader 4-speeds. They actually got them from Ford, which is kind of neat.
Nice.
And they started racing them on Woodward Avenue. Factory race. These were Pontiac engineers racing factory Tempests up and down.
That's
cool. They started getting all these letters to Pontiac started getting all these letters. We want one of these factory Pontiacs, And it was basically a Skunk Works program that way, and they forced Pontiac's hand to create what is now known as the GTO.
Oh, wow.
And so
cool.
That was where, I think it was 63 was the first year for the GTO. And that's how they did it, is they were out there street racing these.
That's awesome. I never knew that.
Yeah. And it was on Woodward. And so the history of Woodward Avenue and racing, the real fame of it goes back to Pontiac in the early 60s with the GTO.
That's awesome.
Ever since then, it just kind of became the place, So that's the street that created the car and the car that created the street,
I think I've mentioned this on one of the prior episodes. My cousin, what would have been? I don't think it was his dad's. I believe it was his uncle's. Had a GTO that was parked in their barn.
Yeah.
And my cousin and I, when we were little kids, we used to sit in there and play with the shifter and pretend we're driving this thing really, really fast. And I remember doing that all the time and how much fun that was. And it was that, and I don't remember what else it was, but for some reason I always wanted a GTO. I like the old
look of them. Is the car still there?
Oh, no. It got sold or moved long time ago. And I remember that day, too, because we were all getting ready to go out in the barn and play in the car. And cousin goes, no, it's gone. And we were really sad.
Man, that sucks.
Yeah.
I've only ran across one once. It was one that had all the glass smashed out. It was missing the hood, missing the trunk lid, but still had the big motor. No, it was here locally. Still had the 4-speed in it and everything. I could have had for $500, but I was like, man, this car needs so much work. And today it would have been worth so much more. And
it's funny hearing stories like that, the regrets of what we didn't get.
I know.
And I know again I mentioned this. My dad had a '67 Mustang. It was one of his first cars.
Oh, nice.
And he's like, I really wish I never would have sold it. But back then, that was nothing.
It was a throwaway car.
Exactly. Now you look at some of this stuff and you start kicking yourself. And it's not fair to yourself, but at the same time, it's like, man, I wish I had that.
I was having that talk with some folks at the museum the other night. We are starting to get some people filtering into the museum now again.
Awesome. Thank you for coming.
And actually,
bring your friends.
CJ from Vintrust Garage did. He brought some friends from out of state and stuff, or out of town at least. And they came down, and we had a couple other people. And we were talking about those ones that got through our fingers, the ones that we lost. And but yeah, and speaking of the museum, folks, if you you want to come down and check it out, we are now open every Thursday night from 6 to 8:30, and we're continuing to build our displays and work on things down there. So we got some cool things coming up in the near future here. So come on down, 8061 Marsh Road, Clay Township, Michigan, and check it out.
I love it.
By all means.
So we're talking about working on things. You got any updates for us, Keith? I know I just posted a big one.
Yeah, okay, so you're talking by Ford Project.
Yeah. Did we ever settle on an official name for it?
No, not yet. Not yet.
Yeah, we forgot to put a poll up on 4x4 Talk about that, by the way.
I actually have some updates that I can't tell you on the air. But
okay.
And eventually I'll tell on the air.
Okay.
But we have, let's see, what have I done? Have I collected anything? No. I have.
I see the Ford truck has moved in your yard about 50 feet.
Yeah, I keep moving.
And rotated 90 degrees.
I keep moving around so the kid can mow around it. But the garage, I've gotten a lot done in there, getting it ready so I can. I did pull the trans out of the Cummins parts truck and sold the trans to help money to go forward with the project. Now I just got to get the Cummins out of there and we'll see.
From there.
No,
Nice.
we'll see how it goes. I'm 99% sure you're going to beat me, but
It only counts if I finish it, though.
it's worth a bottle of bourbon to me, man.
I said, worst come to worst, it's at a point I can at least throw it on a trailer and bring it there to display, but I'm going to really try to actually be able to drive it. That's my bare minimum goal, is to be able to drive it there. Even if I got to back road it and someone following me with no plates, I'll do it.
It counts. I'll count it,
I'm
man.
going to try. I'm not going to count that as a win, because that wasn't part of the agreement, but I'm going to try my absolute best to get it there.
And what he's talking about, folks, is Wheels in the Woods 2021, October 9th. You can start wheeling in about 10 o'clock. It is an all-vehicle show. It is not an off-road event. It is a car show, but we have all sorts of vehicles.
Though.
Yeah, we have off-road vehicles in it. That is 8945 Marsh Road, Clay Township, Michigan,
A couple miles
48001.
down the road from the museum.
Same side of the road, a couple miles down. So come down and check that out. You can go on Facebook, say you're coming to it. You can look up Wheels in the Woods 2021.
Do we have an event page for that
We
now?
do.
Oh,
We
okay,
do.
cool.
So
I'll find that and start sharing it.
Exactly. So come on out to that. And so you got your floor pans in?
Yeah, I've got the big major chunk in. That was probably 95% of the floor that needed to be replaced. As one of the pictures you could see, I've got 2 patches left to make, and then that section's done. I have one small piece on the rear inner fender well, and then at least the driver and passenger floors are completely done. A few patches in the cargo area. And then really it's down to paint, electrical, fuel lines.
I got faith in you, man. You can do
What's
it.
the other? Fuel, electrical, brakes, brake lines. So yeah, I'm excited. The majority of the fabrication's all done. Said a few odds and ends left. Hopefully not as many burn marks. My arms are so burned up from spatter from welding on that. Oh my God, it hurts.
Yep.
And then, so remember our last episode, I was talking about consumables.
Yeah.
And I said, have a spare.
Yeah.
I ran out of wire 6 inches from finishing a weld the first night I was working on the pan. Completely out of welding wire. So I went the next day, got it, finished it that day. And unfortunately, that price has gone up quite a bit on welding wire.
But you got her going.
Yeah, I only bought one spool this time, but that spool should get me through the rest of this.
All right.
I'm very, very excited, and I can actually sit in there now. So it's exciting to actually see this progressing. I got that new throttle body installed too, which looks awesome.
Very nice.
So I'm really, really excited to get this thing running. I'm more excited, I think, to get it running than anything. Just like with Pegasus, it was down for so long, this far down longer than Pegasus. Actually, this has been down longer than I've owned Pegasus. So,
Yeah, all right.
Wow. So yeah, that to hear that engine run, I'm gonna be really excited.
Me too. Me too.
Yeah.
Well, where can people see more updates of your project?
So on Facebook.com/4x4 Talk. Actually, I think it's just look up 4x4 Talk on Facebook. A couple quick questions to get you on the page. I post updates on there periodically. Every now and then I'll just throw random pictures up, surprise little details and all that. But if you want to interact with us, that's where you do it. Post your pictures, ask your questions, just general conversation, and kind of go from there as you see fit.
Absolutely. And if you're interested in hearing more about the Museum of Off-Road Adventure, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as Museum of Off-Road Adventure. Same thing for Wheelin. You can follow us at Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. But like John said, join 4x4 Talk. And we also have the Patreon after show, too.
Patreon.com/Wheelin Radio. Access low is $2 a month. Get you access. If I could talk today, that would be great.
Yep.
Access as low as $2 a month. Gets you access to a lot of extras, bonus content, things we don't necessarily get to in the show. We do beer reviews on there. That's kind of become our new thing lately. And it just kind of goes from there with all kinds of cool stuff.
Sounds good, man.
And then just make sure you like, subscribe to us, comment, share, subscribe to things. I think I said that already. I don't know. Just make sure you follow us, get the updates, and listings for new shows and all that good stuff.
Sounds good, John, man. Yeah. Happy 100 episodes.
Absolutely, sir. And with that, we'll say thanks for listening with everybody. Thanks for sticking to us for so long. Hope you continue to follow us for the next 100. And have a good one, everybody.